Okay, guys, I'm going to try to do this here for you today. You know, I believe you have a right to know and understand everything about the barley in the land of Israel. I don't believe it should be a secret, anybody's proprietary information as far as the determination of it. I think this knowledge should belong to the world because in my belief system, the Rosh HaBikurim of all of the land of Israel represented what the Messiah did when he was buried and resurrected, when he offered his life and he was resurrected as the first fruits from the dead. This is the witness of the Messiah. The disciples, the people in the early church, they didn't have the writings of the New Testament. They taught the Messiah from the Old Testament. So this is the witness of the Messiah. This is how we recognize him, is by those scriptures. And because I don't believe it's anybody's proprietary information that they should keep to themselves and say, oh, I know how to determine this. You should just listen to me. No, we all need to know how to determine this. You need to know why I have decided what I have decided. Because I believe, honestly, with my life, I've staked my salvation, I've staked my future and eternity on my belief, why we believe what we believe. I'll pause here and I'll say the birds in the background. If you hear a parrot, you're just going to have to ignore him. But I went out to specifically a hot zone where things were superheated by rocks and elements that I knew would cause an early ripening and an evening ripening of the barley, so I could bring to you various stages of the barley. Now I also have on the table the Zadoks scale, and I've put those up on the page. I've given you the printed one with the description, with the 9 points and the subsections, and then I've given you the photo one that has the scale from 0 to 99 on it with photos. So let's begin to look at this. And I tried really hard to find one that was not out of the Oz yet, but I couldn't find one that was completely inside the boot, as they would say. This first one, and I want you also to look. This one's very short, isn't it? This one's very tall, isn't it? So it has nothing to do with the seasons, really the season's environment. It has to do with the season's environment, but what I'm trying to say is the more brutal the conditions of the barley, the sooner they're going to force the grains into the head. The more rain and the softer the weather, the taller the plant is going to grow. If you have a bad year where there's no water, you could have, if you remember my pictures of another hot zone in Jerusalem, you can have a stalk this big and a head this big, because the barley plant's purpose in life is to make a grain. So we've got various links here. And I wanted to show you today that Abib is not about the condition of the plant. Abib is about the condition of the grain. The plant carries the grain to us. But we're going to start over here. Okay, this, if I don't turn it to where you can see the Oz sticking out, because they are just still barely sticking out here. We'll pretend like they're not. Do you see how the stem is swollen here? Okay, it's kind of bulging. It looks kind of pregnant from here up, and when you go further down, it's more skinny. This is in the boot. And if we couldn't see any of the hairs or the Oz, all we would have to do is we would look in here. This could be oats, and it is. Doesn't matter. It's a cereal grass. They develop the same way, cereal wheat, wild oats. And we would see, try to pay attention to what I'm doing with my hands and my camera, and we would see that the head is just getting ready to emerge. And in this case, it is an wild oat grass, okay? But they're all cereal grass. And it's not important to me who's a weed and who's a grass, okay? Paul talks about that. he talks about planting a seed and not knowing what it will happen of wheat, that you wait to see. All cereal grass looks the same. This head, this cereal grass that was in the boot, and this stem that was concealing the green head that's in the boot, happened to be of oat, okay? And we're going to go right over here. And we're going to see that number 45 is in the boot. It's when that plant is right down in here, and see the difference, that there's swelling in that stem. Okay, we're going to go right over here. And we're going to see that that reflects a 4.5, a swollen boot. And then we saw that the little flag sheath was starting to open at the top because those O's were emerging. That's actually a 5.7. And when you see the first little awns beginning to emerge, they're visible. Sorry, I think I said that was a 5. That's actually a 4. That's a 4.9. The first awns are visible. And this just helps us all understand what we're saying. It's like a barley dictionary. And see here, this one, I believe it will be barley. Let's open it. We can see that the sheath is letting the head out, right? I'm going to open it. Yeah, this one's going to be barley. See the awns? See how this whole thing is swollen and like it's pregnant right here? We're just going to open it all the way down right here. If I can get my fingers to work. If left to its own devices, this would emerge as a head of barley. Okay? So that's what it means. When it's in that boot, it's down inside that stalk, and it's getting ready to emerge. All right, so I'm just going to show you. Here's another one with emerging awns. And another one that's a little bit further emerged. This one, see how the sheath is opening up on that? See how you can see that head of barley peeking out right there? So look at your paper and decide what that would be called when the sheath is opening and the head is beginning to emerge. You've got the scale right there. We're all on the same page because we've got the scale that speaks barley language. Okay? Here's another one. Same thing. Hairs are out. The sheath is mostly off. Okay, now I'm going to jump over here, and there's the final one. Same thing, same thing. Now I'm going to jump over here real quick, and I'm going to show you that here are two that I found that are emerged. Can you see the blooms on that thing? After the head emerges, the next thing that happens is it blooms. Now, it's hard for me to tell you, and in fact, that's what the Zadoks scale says. It's hard for me to tell you if this one is finished blooming or if it's just beginning. Which one of these is further ahead? Because in the conditions that I picked these, which is in that hot zone, you're going to find them at various, like you just saw, that all came from the same area. I didn't walk all over the neighborhood to do that. I just went to one hot zone. And depending on how the stones laid on the land and how the barley was positioned next to the path, was depending on the maturity of each individual stalk. So I can't tell you which one of these is more mature, but let's just call them that they're both mature. So what I want to do is I want to show you, if we go to the Zadoks scale, and we just saw that the awns were visible. Okay, we have the whole head. We're at a, let's call it a 6-1, the beginning of flowering. You have to go to 7 before the kernel begins to develop. Okay, that cut off. It goes to 7 before the kernel begins to develop. It goes from a kernel watery to an early milk to a medium milk to a late milk to a dough, early dough. Okay, it's important because that takes time. Let's open one of these. And we take it from the middle to make sure we get the most mature on this one. Let's open one of these and see if there's anything in there. And I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to squeeze this up to milk it. And there's nothing inside of there. There's nothing to milk out of that. There's no, oh, we have a little bitty bit at the base of that. Right down there, there was a little bitty bit. But that's not a kernel. Let's pull another one of these. And check it. See if I can milk it up. No, that's the flowers. That's the flowers out of the stem right there. You see that? That would have been the bloom. That's not the kernel. So there's nothing in here that's a kernel. There's not even any fluid. Now, I know that at least one person that's probably going to watch this lives in Central America. This barley is like a coconut in that when a coconut begins to develop the meat of the nut, and it's really a seed, first thing it does is it fills that container, the coconut, in this case, this sheath, with a fluid. And then as it matures, it uses that fluid. It's like, I think it was called an endosperm fluid. Uses that fluid to actually create the meat of the seed. So you go from a globe with all liquid, eventually you have a globe with a little liquid and mostly meat. And that's what we're going to do with the wheat. We've got to have fluid inside of here, an endosperm, and it's got to create a meat from that fluid. And this has not even entered in what they call the watery kernel phase yet. Now, why is that important? Because if we saw the moon the 27th, and that would have been the first of the year, then we go 28, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, wait, 28, I'm sorry, start that again. Didn't do it, was 27, okay, 27, 28, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the 12th of March, okay, we would need these guys that are the most furthest in that field to have matured enough to the point that there was absolutely grains to offer at that during that week. And the rains have not stopped. In that field, that barley is still putting its energy into this stalk. Until the rains stop, the barley is going to put its energy into this stalk. When the rains stop, it's going to force the energy into the head, and it's going to develop the kernels, and not before. So I hope that this gives you an understanding that you can look at that and you can say, oh, that's tender, young, and green. That's not what the Bible's talking about. It's talking about what's inside there. It's talking about the grain.